welcome aboard.
Please welcome to the stage Axios Dallas reporter Naheed Rajwani Darcy.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started, so if you could please take your seats, that would be great. Hello, I'm Naheed Rajwani Darcy. I'm one of the 3 Axios Dallas reporters here in North Texas. I'm so thrilled that you're all here with us today. We're going to be talking about bridging connections across the digital divide. For those of you watching online this morning, you can also be part of the conversation using the platform X, formerly known as Twitter. Tweet at us using the hashtag Axios Events. And if you don't already, please go ahead and subscribe to Axios Dallas so that you can get the latest information on what's happening here in Dallas and across North Texas. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce our first speaker for today. He's the Chief Information Officer for the City of Dallas. Please join me in welcoming Bill Zielinski. Hi. Hi, Bill. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Rainy morning and afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started, but I wanted to talk about your experience in the federal government. So you've been here in Dallas for about 3 years, but you have, 30 years of experience?
30 years, correct.
So clearly you've done a lot of these types of conversations. You know a lot of lingo. I'd love for you to describe what you believe the digital divide is to frame our conversation today.
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? Because I think it's a well-used term, and really getting to a base level of understanding of exactly what it means is very important. So I think at the most basic level, just simply put, what it is really that gap between those who have access to the internet and are able to use the internet versus those that do not have access to the internet, just at its most simplest level. Now, that doesn't just include the internet itself, the broadband, but it also includes the devices that one needs to be able to connect. It includes having the skills to be able to connect, and it also includes kind of the assistance that allows them to be successful in utilizing the internet. And what you've seen over time, and it's becoming more and more well documented, is that where you have that gap, you're beginning to see material gaps in life outcomes. So things like employment opportunities, educational opportunities, the ability to participate in e-health, amongst others. So that gap for the digital divide really does lead to those other kind of gaps in outcomes.
What have you seen in the time that you spent here in Dallas? What is the state of the digital divide here in our city, in our region?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the challenges that we have overall is the availability of data, right? So we're a very large, very geographically dispersed city, a lot of different neighborhoods and areas. And so trying to get that set of data that really helps you understand how it is that you can size the problem, how you can really determine who does or does not have access to the internet, getting to some level of attribution of what's the cause of that. Is it because those services aren't available to them in their location? Is it because of affordability? Is it because of a lack of knowledge for adoption? It's very nuanced in terms of those circumstances. And so a lot of different groups have attempted to really ascertain the size of the problem and what it looks like here. Every study, every work that I've seen shows that we in the city of Dallas have some significant gaps. So comparatively, we are kind of in that target list of high impact as it relates to the number of households who do not have access to the internet today.
So I'm sure you've learned about this. Dallas has a long history of disinvestment that's affected different communities in different ways. And now the city is trying to rectify some of that history that we've experienced in the past. I'm curious, how, in your experience, has that history factored into the inequities in broadband and digital access that you've seen among neighborhoods now?
What you see in general is that it tracks very closely to where you have those areas of disinvestment. And Southern Methodist University it had done a very broad study on kind of all aspects of infrastructure and where there are infrastructure deserts and where there are other conditions where there are those kind of gaps. And what we see is you can overlay very nicely where we have reports of households that do not have access to the internet, overlays very nicely to where you have those infrastructure deserts. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, nor do I think that that it's not rational, right? It's that kind of infrastructure that needs to be in place to really foster those conditions where you can have kind of the availability of services. That makes sense. But you can see that it tracks very closely issues around the digital divide to where we have those disinvestments in the city.
So you touched on this earlier, and I'd like for you to elaborate. What are some, when a family doesn't have access to something as simple as broadband, or other forms of digital connectivity, what does that inhibit for them? What does that look like? And what are some of the challenges or issues that they experience in their day-to-day lives that other families may not even think about?
Wow, there's so many examples that could be provided, but I'll start with education as kind of the example that really became clear during the pandemic as everyone was sent home and they attempted to do learning over the internet. What you find is that in general, it starts with, do they have access to the internet in that home? And what we found is that there are many instances where the only level of access may have been through somebody's cell phone, right? That was the primary means by which somebody could connect, right? So right at that point, you may have multiple children all trying to take classes. You may have adults in the home who are trying to telework. You're not going to be able to support that through a single device as your point of connection, even if you had multiple other devices attempting to use that device as a hotspot, right? You start to see how it stacks up pretty quickly. The other piece of it too is going back to, it's not just a matter of that connectivity, not just getting access to the internet, but being able to have the devices that are the end user devices that they really need to support whatever it is that they're doing. And in some instances, having the right devices is critically important for them to do whatever it is that they need to do. And that's why I think you see across the community here, there's been a lot of investments made, not just at looking at getting people connected, but also making sure that they have the devices and support to be able to do so.
I would imagine on top of that, with that initial support of getting these resources and tools going, they also need to be able to sustain it and make sure that they have it for a long period of time. And so
Correct.
I can imagine there's conversations around that sustainability as well. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we here in the city and cities all across the country have had this rare opportunity with an infusion of federal funding that was intended to provide kind of help people get that access, provide them with the tools that they need. But over time, we all really need to look for solutions that don't just provide kind of a Band-Aid on the front end of this, because we know that those funds are not going to continue from the federal government. So we need to find ways that really will address the underlying conditions so that we can ensure that we can sustain this over the long haul.
What have you noticed? How does Dallas compare to other cities, other large cities? Where is our state of digital divide compared to other, I guess, similar sized cities? Yeah,
so we're the 9th largest city, so there's only so many that are truly similar size to us. However, what I will say is that as I meet with my counterparts from across the country and we discuss the issues are all very similar in nature, right? It's do we have enough infrastructure in place? Do we have the support networks to provide the services that we need to provide? But what is different is kind of the mix of those problems. So it's like similar ingredients but different recipes that are going to be needed in order to address those problems. You do find that there are other cities, other municipalities who have made large-scale investments even before the federal funding came in, and they were better positioned to be able to address the issues of the digital divide. So again, very similar across the board in terms of trying to measure where the issues are and how to address those issues, but a different recipe for each of the cities.
So I'm sure you're familiar with our newsletter. We like to use the term zoom in quite a bit. Let's zoom into Dallas. What are some things that the city has tried, your office has tried to help bridge this gap in the digital divide?
Yeah, a number of things that we have done is we've established partnerships that span kind of the municipalities, the counties, and really look for those ways that we can work together to address services. One of the things that I think that you see is very healthy here is we've established, and I'm not going to steal the thunder of Jen Sanders, who's going to be coming up shortly, but we've established digital navigators programs. We have a number of our industry partners. AT&T, as an example, has made significant investments in these programs, and we really have been able to locate the communities that need the assistance, provide them with the devices, provide them with assistance in getting signed up for services. So I think a big part of what we have done to date is really addressing kind of that aspect of providing direct support to the community. We have invested in our public places like our parks and our recreation centers in putting free high-speed city Wi-Fi in those locations, which means that anybody who's visiting our parks or our recreation centers can avail themselves of those services. But it also means that anybody who's in close proximity to those locations can obviously use those services as well. So it's not a single thing, but a number of different things that we really have pushed out as kind of a fabric overall that will help address the issues.
Have you found that these things that the city has tried with its partners, what has been the reaction from the communities that are, didn't originally have access to things like broadband?
Yeah, a lot of positive reaction. Obviously, when you start to roll out these services in some areas, then everybody wants some of those services as well. So there's a lot of hunger and thirst for us to expand these services even more broadly. I think for those areas where we have residents, households who are already receiving great services from the providers in place, it hasn't necessarily changed kind of their approach, but I do think for those residents, we've seen instances of where people will actually hold classes or put events into parks or recreation centers. They really are utilizing these services that we put out there.
Let's talk about challenges. What are some of the challenges or drawbacks that you've seen in your position with trying to bridge the digital divide and also bringing technology to more people within the city?
So I'm going to start with the positive, right? So the good news here in Dallas is you really have a coalition of the willing, right? You have a community that is very willing to participate, very willing to provide whatever resources they may have to address the issues. So I think a strength for us is that across the community, whether it's the nonprofits, whether it's industry, whether it's governmental entities, they're all in on trying to find solutions, right? That said, there are challenges that we have, and I mentioned one already. It really is in that area of data first and foremost, right? We don't have really an authoritative data source that tells us exactly who doesn't have access and the reasons for which they don't have access and where they're located. And the information that has been out there, the data that has been out there, for example, the maps from the Federal Communications Commission several years ago, they only went down to the census tract level. So you really didn't have that kind of discrete level of information that would help you. That's improving. I think everybody's committed to trying to get the information they need. But that makes it extremely difficult for us to micro-target the services that we're the goal is get people signed up, get them online, get them the tools that they need, allow them to do the things in their life that they need to, and trying to pick through the 1.34 million residents of the city to precisely find that you need data to help you be able to do that. Got a couple more.
Yes, of course.
Second is programs like the Affordable Connectivity Program. Great program, low-hanging fruit. If we could get people to utilize that program to create affordability for their internet services, we should do everything we can to roll that out. Problem is that we don't know if it's going to continue beyond the current funding tranche. So not knowing, not having that certainty in and around what mechanisms are available to help you. And third, I'll give one more. We have some unique circumstances here where we have a lot of multi-tenant environments. And there are these agreements in place where there's only a single provider in these multi-tenant environments. And so what you find is those are real pockets of populations that don't have access to the internet. So the FCC has done a number of things to try to address that as an issue, but my personal opinion is it's going to take a legislative fix in order to really address that. But there are tens of thousands of people in the city who don't have a lot of choice in terms of their internet service providers because of the multi-tenant environments and the agreements that are there. So those are, as I said, it's multifaceted.
So in your opinion, what do you think the city or someone in your role should be doing to address some of these challenges and barriers? For example, with limited funding, right? That's not something that's obviously in the city's control, but what, as someone who I would imagine as a thought leader, what are some things that we should be really looking to make sure that there's long-term access for families, and so they're not like running out of the support financially that they're initially receiving?
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said before about kind of the community of the willing and the partnerships that are there. These are not problems or issues that any one of us can solve individually, and it really is going to take the participation and the partnerships between all entities within a city to really tackle some of these issues. So I think as you look at issues of kind of solutioning and sustainability, I think that the biggest key is really finding those key partnerships and ensuring that you're working together as a community to address them.
How do we know if we've truly achieved the digital divide? Like, what are some quick ways that we can maybe get there and get in that direction?
I was with you until you said quick ways. I think really it's going to be revealed through continuous monitoring. That's why I think events like this, and thanks to Axios and to the event sponsor for continuing to shine the light on this issue, right? I think as long as we're continuing to talk about the issues of the digital divide, we're continuing to look at how we are measuring whether people have meaningful access and how that is translating to life outcomes. So I think participation rates from an electronic health perspective, participation rates from an employment perspective, I think those are all highly important indicators as to whether or not people have the meaningful access that they need to lead their lives. And again, continuing to shine the light and monitoring the circumstances.
So you come from a federal background, right? You worked in the executive office of the president. You have Social Security Administration experience. When you came here to Dallas, and this was one of the issues that you were, taking on, what surprised you the most about what you were seeing and talking to people about?
So after 30 years with the federal government, part of what attracted me to come to local government is because there's nowhere better to be able to work to solve the problems of the people of a city, right? You are as close to ground zero and boots on the ground as you can be anywhere, right? So that was actually part of what attracted me to coming to the city. So I don't know if there was anything that really was a surprise. Well, maybe I'll say this. I think as you take a look at these issues, coming to the city and realizing the numbers of stakeholders that really are necessary to move the ball on a lot of these issues, you realize and understand that for many of these things, it's not a technology issue that you need to solve. It really is an issue of partnering and finding the right constituents and working together jointly to solve those problems. And so I think I understood that coming in, but the extent to which it really is necessary in a dynamic city like Dallas was more than I might have anticipated.
So I would imagine in your role, you do have to partner quite a bit with people you don't know. Can you walk us through what that looks like? How do you cultivate a partnership with different public and private entities to make sure that you're achieving your goals?
Well, one way is, and again, you have Jennifer Sanders who's coming up, and she's a highly dynamic person who is highly involved in the community, and when you join the city, she finds you right? And she enlists you into the collective and kind of brings you along. And it's great to have partners like that who actually facilitate those discussions and facilitate those relationships and partnerships. But I do think that the real focus has to be in solving those issues that are put in front of you, and then understanding who's really critical and important in helping to solve those issues. And at that point, once you've kind of aligned the objectives and knowing who those folks are, then you just need to make sure that you're reaching out and connecting and doing the work that needs to be done to get it done.
What in your experience is the hardest part of being the technology information officer for the city and in tackling these issues that really affect people on a day-to-day basis?
So I think technology is magic, right? Everybody thinks that if you just find the right technology and you lay it on top of something, all the problems will be solved. And often what you find is the success in the deployment of that technology. There's a lot that goes behind it. There's no, I say all the time, I don't have a magic wand. I don't have any fairy dust. I can't magically make technology work. It really does require rolling up your sleeves, getting there, understanding the problem, and ensuring that you're deploying it in the right sort of way. And again, in a city like Dallas, the size of Dallas, with the kind of the diversity of the population and all that we do here, there's a lot of opportunities to deploy that technology to better the lives of residents and businesses. And so, to me, it's less about challenges and more about opportunities.
So the Dallas region often is misunderstood by outsiders by being just the city of Dallas. But we have a lot more to us. We have the suburban, we've got the urban, we've got small cities, large cities, obviously Dallas and Fort Worth. How does that connection work? Like, in your role, do you have the opportunity to collaborate with other similarly minded, similar positioned people in other cities? And what are those conversations like?
Yeah, this is a very large, very diverse population. We've got 13 of the top 100 cities by population here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But there's a lot that we share in common. And so things like these sorts of issues, a good example is the ARPA funding that came in. We all got our allotment, but there's a desire for all of us to work together to find out how we can really ensure that working together to best utilize those funds. So lots of opportunities, and you find a lot of willing partners who would like to sit down at the table and really discuss what we could do together.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for this conversation. It was a great starter to the rest of the day. Everyone else, stay tuned for our next segment with my colleague, Tasha Shaparis.
We're going to move on to our next segment and invite up Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. Hi, Judge.
Hey.
All right. Oh, these are so comfortable. Okay, so we've already heard from the city today, and as we know, the Dallas County area has 2.6 million people. City is only half of that.
Right.
We want to hear from you about what the county is doing to increase broadband access and to ensure that there is enough access to internet for people.
Sure. And everybody hear me okay? Great. So, first of all, what we've done is we scrubbed out the city zip codes, and any zip code that had an area that was not part of the city of Dallas, that is getting advertising from us, bilingual advertising, to talk to them about the Affordable Connectivity Plan. And we've seen between 4,800 and 5,200 signups a month with that advertising campaign. And so this is I think the people in this room know, but perhaps people online may not know, this is a great way to get internet that for many of the people who will use the Affordable Connectivity Plan, they'll get internet for free. So for instance, and I realize I'm kind of mixing things up because I'm going to talk about DISD, our Dallas Independent School District. if your child goes to any of the schools in Dallas ISD, any of the high schools, any of the middle schools, and any elementary school except for Lakewood Elementary and one other, I think is at Mockingbird, maybe elementary, that there's enough kids in those schools on free lunch to where every kid, regardless of your income, will qualify for this program and be able to get essentially free internet in the home. And so that's a big thing that we can do as a county and a city, is get the word out to people of this great program that was passed at the beginning of the Biden administration. I forget which one this one is called. Well, it's called the Affordable Connectivity Plan, but I can't remember in which tranche of money that was passed for COVID that it was in there. But it's a thing that is available now. It'll last for a while, and families really need internet, and they need fast and reliable high-speed internet. It's a lot like electrification years ago, indoor plumbing, the interstate highway system, all of these things that at one point were seen as luxuries, but are now seen as necessities. So the internet is a utility, just like water and electricity, that every family needs to not be left behind on homework, on jobs. And so that's the first thing we're doing.
So let's step back just a moment and look at how big the problem is. From my understanding, it's about, a third of county residents that don't have access to good broadband internet. Is that mostly an affordability issue? Is that lack of infrastructure? What are the key issues that the county is facing to fix?
Well, so it's a couple of issues. Dallas County is a very urban county, and so there is an opportunity for internet for about over 99% of our people. Now, is that fiber? It's not all fiber, but about 99%, over 99% of our people can get internet, but either it's not affordable, and that's largely because they don't know about the Affordable Connectivity Plan, or it's not very fast and reliable. And so the second piece of what we're doing is trying to increase that fiber speed and reliability. But, if you think about Dallas County households, if we just take the Trinity River, which is right by where we are today, if we take the Trinity River or I-30 as a dividing line, and if northern Dallas County, the city and the suburbs, were their own county, they'd be one of the 10 most connected counties in the country. If southern Dallas County were its own county, it would be one of the, I believe, 10, maybe 15 least connected counties in the country. And again, a lot of that is about people buying the product becoming affordable, and then buying the product, and then a piece of that is the connectivity as well, the speed of it, the fiber of it. So one of the things that we're doing, and I know I can't talk, I see some buddies from AT&T here, I can't, I'm almost afraid to say hi to them, but that's because right now we've got a request for proposal out. And so what we've asked our internet service providers to do is to look at connecting our county buildings together with high-speed fiber. The city has something similar, the school district has something similar, and we're all kind of working in conjunction. So all in, that's about $120 million to increase fiber for Dallas County, and particularly for the parts that overlay with the city and the school district. DISD School District goes beyond just the city of Dallas. At Seagoville, Wilmer Hutchins, for instance, are in that district. And so we're looking at that. What we would propose to do is connect points where the government has a fiber need, but allow that sunk cost of government to make it more affordable and that higher return on investment for our ISP partners, so that they could speed up getting high-speed internet to areas that currently don't have it, because that'll make a huge difference as well.
So once those lines are laid, how quickly do you see access increasing for people?
I would think fairly quickly. There's, three pieces of that RFP. There's, the overall digital equity solution. We're very interested in, there's more than that, but the three main things are, we're really interested in seeing what can you do to increase that equity and that affordability and that connectivity. And speed is one of those important things. This is not like building the convention center where it should take 10 years, to build something. You're talking about, in the simplest form, you're talking about trenching, laying lines, and, hooking up equipment. So, we're not looking for that to take a long time. Since the RFP is still outstanding and it hasn't been awarded yet, I can't really talk about, timelines more than that.
So from a philosophical standpoint, having those lines laid, will that help increase competition with providers so that maybe people can get cheaper prices?
Potentially. You'll have to see who wins those contracts. Currently in Dallas County, most people that have home internet, or for that matter, business internet, are getting that through AT&T or Charter Spectrum. I can't remember. I think maybe it is called Charter Spectrum, but it's the same thing. And so, but there is a possibility, I think early on I don't know if that's still the case, but early on in these discussions, the bigger internet service providers were saying, well, we don't want to ever piggyback off lines that the county would, lay. If that were I don't think that's still the position, because I think every internet service provider that I've ever heard of is bidding on this. But if that were the case, that would open the door for somebody who has a small market share to come in and, have a return on investment advantage. But we'll just have to see how that, lays out. I'm always nervous under our purchasing rules of talking too much about that stuff until somebody's awarded a bid.
So we're nearing the end of
Yeah.
the getting the project started. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So just a more philosophical idea of just why is having internet important, and should it be a public good?
I really do think it should be, a public good in this way. I don't know that internet needs to be a public utility like water. I think when you're looking now, fiber, my friends tell me, my AT&T friends and others tell me, is it's an evergreen product because it's the speed of light, and I hope that's right. But we've seen. I can tell you, as a business person, I have a business still there that's in Waxahachie, and I needed fast internet in, gosh, what would this be? Around the turn of the century. And so I partnered with the convention center down there to bring T1 lines to the convention center and my office. It was quite expensive, and I'm sure none of those lines are probably like rotting in the ground for all I know. Because of the innovation, and now the things that we spent a fortune and had to work through all the stuff on, you can easily get from other, sources. And so I'm always a little hesitant to see government compete with technology companies. The county has not fared well when it's tried to create its own computer systems, for instance. Just building those, competing, evergreening those can be difficult. That may be what happens, though. I'm not opposed to the internet being something similar to water or electric co-ops. I don't think we're there yet. We'd have to see, the science and the business model would have to prove themselves. I think where you've seen that happen in other places, it hasn't worked out all that well yet. Doesn't mean it won't. Don't mean somebody won't crack the code, but where you've seen people go in and say, we're going to build our own system that competes with Charter or whoever their provider is, that hasn't worked so well as far as I've seen. Now, what we have seen work, well comparatively, is people in areas where you cannot get an internet service provider interested, in various rural areas, to say we're going to build something ourselves. which is better than nothing.
Right.
And that has, it's a different metric, but that has worked well. That's not the problem that we have, though, in an urban county like Dallas. Only about 7,000 of the residents of Dallas counties, it's between 2.6 and 2.7 million people, only 7,000 of those live in unincorporated areas. So virtually everyone is in a city.
Right. Well, thank you so much today.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. We're going to wrap up this session to get through the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give a warm welcome to our View from the Top moderator and Axios General Manager of Global, National, and Local Events, John Otto.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for braving the weather to be here today. These programs are not possible without the support of our sponsors, and so I'd like to give a big thanks to our partner AT&T today. I'll introduce the next segment, the View from the Top segment, and please give a warm welcome to AT&T's Assistant Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility, Mylena Albright. So I get to welcome you to stage, but you welcomed me to Dallas, so thank you for that. We've got a lot to cover, so we can get right into it today. So the gap between those who have and use internet today versus those who don't, it's a problem affecting millions of Americans, but it's a key commitment from AT&T in trying to narrow that gap. So please help me understand why the digital divide is so top of mind for you.
So AT&T is all about connecting people. It's what we do. And we know that with, helping to narrow that digital divide, you have to help the people along who have not had the opportunity to participate in a digital world. So we joined forces with Connected Nation. For those of you who don't know Connected Nation is a national nonprofit. And they are committed to helping with access, affordability, and adoption of the internet for more people. And we work with them to do some research for us. And through that research, they were able to look at large cities that still experience large-scale broadband, lack of broadband adoption, and look at why 1 in 4 low-income households do not they don't adopt the internet. They don't see value in it. So with this information, with this research and other data, we will use that to inform our AT&T Connected Learning initiative so that we can be more effective in serving the communities that need it most.
So there are a whole host of entities, both across the public and private sector, that are trying to tackle the challenge of the digital divide. What are some of the most innovative strategies you're seeing to help move the needle right now?
I would say collaboration. There's no way that any one entity could solve this issue. So we work with a number of different nonprofits and other companies who've been working in this space for a long time and who are the subject matter experts. So one example is with Dell. Dell computers are in all of our AT&T Connected Learning Centers. AT&T Connected Learning Centers are a key part of AT&T Connected Learning Initiative. We have 26 Connected Learning Centers that have opened across the country in cities like Dallas, Detroit, Houston. We have several that are in California, some on tribal land. We have one opening soon in Oklahoma. So with all that work, we knew that for Connected Learning Centers, we were very intentional about placing those within organizations, community centers that are already serving the population of individuals that likely suffer from the digital divide. So we're able to bring our resources to serve more people and hopefully, helping to narrow that digital divide.
Mm-hmm. And can you share a little bit more about some of the progress that you're seeing being made so far?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing the numbers, expand. And part of this is, because those partnerships, in addition to Connected Learning Centers, we're doing a lot with our work with Public Library Association, so that we're able to create digital literacy courses so individuals are able to get courses that they need to take advantage of things that we take for granted, how to operate email, how to do video conferencing. And we're also giving away a lot of laptops. We knew that there was a need for large screen devices, so we're working with organizations like Digitunity and CompuDopt so that we are able to get those computers in the hands of the families that need them most. And the good thing about the work we do, we don't just drop them off and leave families to fend for themselves. These organizations provide well-needed resources. They provide tech support for families that don't know how to, do the bare minimum of getting the computer set up. So it's been, amazing. So we've, you asked me about, where are we with our progress? So our goal is to reach 1 million people in need with digital resources by the middle of 2025, and we're doing that through the AT&T Connected Learning Initiative, and we're seeing really good progress. So overall, of that 1 million, and I asked them to pull numbers like very recently, so I want to make sure I get them right. We've reached more than 516,000 people so far toward that 1 million goal. We're pretty proud about that. But this includes more than 88,000 refurbished devices and Wi-Fi hotspots that we've given out. More than 158,000 students have participated in AT&T Achievery, and more than 188,000 people have used our digital literacy courses.
When we spoke once before, you mentioned just an amazing title, Digital Navigators.
Yes.
And so I'd love, help me understand what that is again.
Yeah, so digital navigators are a piece that we've introduced into the work. Think of digital navigators as trusted partners within the community that have access to low cost broadband. Most families don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. Digital navigators will help with that. Digital navigators help with the basics of how to operate a computer. But they also provide well-needed resources around what if a family needs social programming? They don't know how to go online and take part in that. And digital navigators are that partner that are able to assist with that. We're also working with digital navigators that are helping with the ACP program, the Affordable Connectivity Program. And ACP, for some people it's very daunting. We've actually worked with Public Library Association. I mentioned the digital literacy courses that we've helped to create. Well, we were pretty intentional about doing one for ACP so that families are able to go online and they can take our courses free of charge, self-paced, or they can work with any of the libraries who can help walk them through these workshops. But it tells them what the ACP program is. It helps them understand what documents that they need to pull together, and actually helps them understand how to go through the process to see if they are eligible. So.
You mentioned Connected Nation earlier, and some of the research shows there's still a significant percentage of those that are living within and dealing with the digital divide right now. But help us on what have you learned kind of from understanding why those gaps still exist today?
Well, there are a couple of barriers. So through Connected Nations research, we found that cost is a major barrier for many people. So they feel like they can't afford the service. But ironically, there's a lack of awareness of programs like the Affordable Connectivity Program, which provides a very large discount on home internet. So what we're doing, I talked about the work that we're doing with digital navigators, but also the work to help bring awareness around ACP so families understand that there are things that are available to them so that they can take advantage of that resource.
So tell us what's next. What is some of the data and research showing there?
Well, first and foremost, AT&T will continue on with our commitment to help narrow the digital divide. We'll do that for students, we'll do that for families. And through Connected Nations research, we know that families that are connected lead to education and economic opportunity. And also they ask people who have ACP, how are they using their connection? And we know that families are using their connection to get online because they work remotely, or to get online to do homework. And there are high percentages of people that are doing that. So we know that the work is still needed. For us at AT&T, we will continue with developing our connected learning centers. We will have more than 50 connected learning centers open by the middle of 2024. And with those, we're also going to incorporate digital navigators within connected learning centers. We actually have about 3 connected learning centers opening within the next couple of weeks, so we'll be busy. And then in addition to that, we want to get the AT&T Achievery out to more students. The AT&T Achievery is our online free education platform, and through that we're going to work with after-school programs such as Campfire and City Year to get to about 34,000 more students.
Oh, great. We're about to get the hook, but we like to finish with one fun thing here at Axios, and your team mentioned you're a bit of a thrill seeker. Care to share a little bit more about that?
I would, and I'm really happy my family is watching, so I'm sure they're going to get a real big kick out of this. I love roller coasters. Absolutely love roller coasters, but I'm extremely motion sick. So my fun fact, I've been taken out of every amusement park in Ohio in an ambulette after riding a roller coaster. No one will go to amusement parks with me. We usually save that to the end, but that's my big fact.
But no regrets.
No regrets. If anybody wants to go to Six Flags, let me know.
Yeah. You get VIP treatment on the way out.
Yes.
Well, great. We're out of time. Mylana, thank you so much for the conversation, and thank you for AT&T's partnership in making today possible.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Axios' Texas Bureau Chief, Bob G.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here today. Now for our next guest and final segment of the program, I'd like you to help me welcome the co-founder and executive director of the Dallas Innovation Alliance, Jennifer Sanders. Good to see you, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
It's a critical conversation.
So you bring a unique perspective here because you kind of bridge the public sector and the private sector in your work. So I look forward to our conversation to kind of stitch together those two perspectives. I wanted to first start with talking about smart cities, which is a topic that you're intimately familiar with. In your mind, what does the ideal smart city look like, and has that view changed over time?
Well, when we started the Dallas Innovation Alliance in 2015, we knew we wanted to define, one, we had to have our own definition of what a smart city was because it was such a ubiquitous term. And we also knew that we wanted it to be really holistic in nature and really center on how it was impacting people. Because I think the way I've seen it shift is, in 2015 or initially it was so technology driven, it was so amorphous acronyms that I think people lost the fact that the ultimate purpose is how are we improving operations, how are we improving economic opportunity. And so we defined a smart city as one that finds that intersection between data, technology, and community to solve problems using new tools. So technology is really a catalyst. And so I think an ideal smart city is one that brings everyone together. It's very interdisciplinary in nature, not just across sector, but within an individual entity. And through that, you can find ideally one solution that solves multiple problems or a single investment that can solve multiple problems.
So what would be some examples of what sorts of systems that you would put in place for a smart city? I mean, I think other cities have, there's traffic, sensors, and even down to like trash pickup. What kinds of services do you think could be improved in this ideal smart city?
I think it sounds simple but not easy, but first getting really, really granular on what is the problem that we need to solve where we are. Because I think that sometimes that step gets a little bit glossed over or doesn't get detailed enough to find a solution that we know will work. And so I think first it's what are the most critical problems. And then one thing that I love doing is getting a PhD on the ground by talking to as many cities as I can because it's changing so rapidly. And so I think solutions that make a ton of sense is for you, one, you need the connectivity infrastructure as the backbone None of the other bells and whistles will work if you don't have that strong backbone in the first place. And then again, multifaceted investments or infrastructure. A lot of what is being done is around traffic signals, also around streetlights. The city of Dallas has an award-winning project in the Red Cloud neighborhood that used new streetlights, better lighting, included public Wi-Fi provisions, included noise sensing. Environmental sensing is another option. So really, again, how are we using data to measure and track all kinds of different things that are impacting communities?
So in these, I guess, almost decade that you've been working on this, what strides has Dallas made, and where do you think that are some areas that you'd like to see expansion in smart city?
Well, I think that the ability for departments to come together has really grown, or is something that I've seen over the last 10 years. Dedicated working groups that come together regularly that do bring departments together that maybe haven't had those types of meetings together. I think if you're in a room and not everybody knows why they're in the same room at the beginning, that's a good thing, because that means that you're forging those types of connection points that get things done. But I think, the establishment of a dedicated director of transportation, which was a new role several years ago. I think and again, the integrated planning, I think looking at things through an equity lens has taken, a much heavier focus. And so, I think the development of the focus areas, either within department or new departments, is a really great step. And then I think taking the time to really identify the core technology necessary, and being able to have that level of readiness in the different parts of Dallas has been really critical. And expansion of green space. There's been wildly high investments in parks across sectors that's just transforming communities.
So we don't think of green space. Green space is kind of low tech. We don't think of that as being a aspect of a smart city. But how does that work?
I think because it's integrated, smart city is, and that's sometimes what I tell our partners is the solution may not have anything to do with technology, but it's about the problem we're solving in a new way, and that's where the innovation comes in. But I think if you're adding more green space, intuitively that's a tool for environmental and air quality, and so you're using the data to really prove that out. But heat island, some of these really critical pieces, technology can help enable knowing what's working and what's not. The green is always going to be a part of that solution.
Interesting. So you mentioned equity, and that's kind of why we're here today, to talk about equity and equitable access to the internet and technology. A good smart city, I guess, also addresses the digital divide. Talk about that.
So, if we're thinking about opportunity for all, we all know, we've known forever, but it was obviously became acutely aware in 2020 of how serious this barrier was. And so I think when you're talking about digital infrastructure, when you're talking about broadband, there is the infrastructure and operations side of the house. You need this connectivity for a city to run better and be able to leverage that, for businesses to be able to operate. But you also need to look at how does that infrastructure get to the resident and make sure that everyone has what they need to fully participate in today's society. So I don't think you can fragment out the benefits that this infrastructure investment is going to bring.
So I wanted to talk about a new initiative that you just launched, this new effort with a technology hub in South Dallas to provide access to internet and hands-on training. And I think this is kind of where you're bridging the public and private sectors, and talk about how that came about and kind of what we hope that achieves.
No, and this has been a program we've been working on for years. And what I love about the program today is all three of the previous speakers are partners of ours that help bring this program to fruition.
That's great.
And so Connected Dallas is the name of the overarching program, and that was developed after really looking at where are the gaps still, after looking at kind of the short-term solutions being implemented during COVID and whatnot. And when we talked to not just residents, but service providers, they talked about the burden of, okay, we not only are serving, patients if it was a health system, but all of this telehealth is amazing, but the amount of time I'm needing to spend helping troubleshoot, even setting up the MyChart account for the population that can most benefit from this, it's taking a lot of extra time on top of my job. We have missed appointments, all of those pieces where you have this amazing technology, but it's not able to be fully utilized without support. And so we developed a program where our ambassadors, who are the folks on the ground, are trained across 13 different resource areas. So obviously, basic digital skills, job searching, staying safe online. But then we have modules that help kind of be that 2-layer of triage to help them make a telehealth appointment, get everything set up. And then hubs like the one in South Dallas that we just launched have all the resources for them to have the computer, have the internet if they don't have it yet at home, to be able to do those appointments with the counsel of an in-house navigator. So
You talked about telehealth, and that's, I think, something the pandemic kind of created another digital divide, which is now we do so much of our healthcare visits online, and that's another issue. And so is that something that you really kind of became focused on as part of this project through the pandemic?
It's certainly, an immediate area where you can see where investment will move the needle from a health standpoint. And so if you look pragmatically, I think from an investment standpoint, the appointments that are missed that either could have gone to help other patients or that missed cost. I've been talking to some cities and some hospital systems where I said, are you maybe funding some of this based on the cost savings of moving the needle on the attrition of missed appointments? Like, can that be a way that we can start to look at funding these programs sustainably? But certainly health is a top priority, and as plans have allowed us in the Dallas area to see, here's where digital deserts are, here's where food deserts are, here's where health deserts are. One, they tend to be they tend to overlap pretty substantially, right. And two, if you can use internet as a solution that can cross all of these problems, I mean, that's really where we all want to live, I think.
That's great. So do you have plans for expansion of this program?
We do. So our goal, we opened our first site. So if we're talking about the brick and mortar, we're opening a second site within the next 3 weeks, and our goal is to have 8 by spring of next year.
And we're all in Dallas, or?
These are all in the city of Dallas. And what we do first, obviously, is we look at we're focused on the top 10 zip codes in the bad way, in terms of where those connection points are. And then there's pockets, other areas of Dallas, at the census block level that are high need as well. But so we're looking to distribute among the areas of highest need by partnering with local community organizations that are deeply embedded.
So you're finding kind of existing facilities that you can use. Okay.
So that we do an application process, and so really what's required really is that there is a space that we could create a computer lab essentially in a modular space to do events and activities and classes and provide that one-on-one kind of case management support as well. But we do want to embed in an existing facility.
Okay. And do you have sort of dreams or plans beyond Dallas for this?
I always do.
Tell us about your dreams, hopes and dreams.
We always knew that the efforts that the DIA were focused on needed to go regionally because the borders they don't matter anymore from an operations standpoint. And so we do have the North Texas Innovation Alliance as a regional initiative. But also my priority is, if something worked, I want everyone to know and use it and be able to move faster. And if it didn't, I want them to know that too. But the goal with a program as comprehensive as this one, pick it up and drop it and take it, right? Whether we're doing it or not. The goal, I think, for everyone in this field that I'm in right now is I would love to work myself out of a job. There's a lot of other things we could pivot and do, but in a perfect world, right, if we can all solve this together, that's where we want to get to.
So, and taking it an even broader view to the state level, I know you're involved with some efforts, a working group to address the digital divides statewide level. And a recent article mentioned there are 7 million Texans who do not have access to broadband internet. So it's obviously an issue that's across our state. What kind of solutions do you think there are on a statewide level?
I think the challenge with answering that is it's so complex by community on what, if you look at the different barriers, whether it's access infrastructure-wise or affordability-wise, whether it's the speed of internet, and I think some communities rural obviously are more likely to lack the infrastructure for high speed. In a city like Dallas, there's a lot of infrastructure. The affordability can be, and so I think weighing that I think what the state is wrestling with right now, and certainly what we're trying to speak into from our experience or who we talk to, is where do we feel like the investment will be most impactful? Because as much funding as it is, it is not remotely close to the amount of funding that would be required to get every Texan connected.
Yeah, so I believe on the ballot this November, there'll be a $1.5 billion investment in broadband internet expansion in Texas. And that, like you said, that was, I think, the comptroller estimated it would be a $10 billion investment that would be needed. So I think that's just a start, but we'll see. So just sort of a last question. How did you, just on a personal level, how did you get so interested and involved in this topic?
Well, gosh, yeah, the origin story, really generally speaking, and me really understanding how deep the divide north and south of 30, in a lot of cities, there's a socioeconomic divide. In Dallas, it happens to be north-south. And I really understood that when I was in 2013, I was working with a school in South Dallas, and a young lady came in on her phone and she looked panicked, and I said, my God, what's going on? And she said, my college application is due in 2 hours and I have to submit my essay, because she didn't have internet at home and she didn't have a computer at home. And so I said, my God, if I'd had to write an essay and be articulate and submit on a phone, it just really brought it home. You know that problem exists, but, and by the way, she just graduated almost top of her class at UT Austin. So just a footnote there. But that really brought it home. And then looking at issues, I love puzzle piecing, and so all of the different issues, and that's obviously moved into the more awareness I had on the broadband piece, the more of my time I wanted to spend there.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thanks for joining us today, Jennifer. And before we wrap, just a final thank you to AT&T for making today's event possible, and also to you, our audience, both here in the room and also online. Please be sure to subscribe to any of our Axios newsletters at axios.com/newsletters, and specifically the Dallas newsletter. You can walk right over there and use that touch screen and sign up if you're not already getting the Dallas newsletter. It's a great read every morning in your inbox. So thank you and have a great day.